And then the other camp that these all fall into, these answers as to why we don't keep it anymore, is identity. Those things were for Israel. Those things were for the Jews. The Torah, the law of Moses, was given to Israel. It was given to the synagogue. It's their responsibility. It's not ours. We're not Jews. We're not Israel. We're the church. So it's an issue of who we are. So, or sometimes it's a kind of a mashup between those two. But generally speaking, those are the two that I've determined why it comes down to that. And that forms this popular narrative in Christian circles, which is shared. When I say narrative, it's almost like a story that's circulated year after year after year after year after year, century after century, almost like the Christmas story, as it were. And so it becomes something that people just kind of know within their culture, within their society. You know, you grow up hearing this as a child, and it permeates your family conversations, your church experience, and then when you reach adulthood and continue to as a Christian, it's just the thing that you were taught as an adult. It's what your parents taught you. It's what their parents taught them. It's what their grandparents and grandparents and great grandparents. So it's a story. It's a narrative, and that's why I describe it that way. So all these pastors, Guzik, MacArthur, Piper, GodQuestions.org, they didn't really have to confer with one another. They all share the same narrative. They have the same story that they're dealing with, which I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing. So don't misinterpret my tone as, wow, they've got this crazy mistaken notion they're all drinking the same Kool-Aid or something. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm simply trying to say that unless you actually do your own personal research and look outside of the narrative, you might not be aware that there are other stories or narratives circulating out there, such as the Jewish perspective as to why we still keep Torah, or the Jewish perspective as to why we don't believe in Jesus, or why we think replacement theology is a bad idea. So let's keep going on my commentary. So we got these four in my commentary, and here's what I say. They agree with all with one another in this particular way. Judaism and its rituals represent an undesirable, unshrunk patch and old wine. So that's where we fill in the parable analogies, the elements again. The unshrunk patch and the old wine are Judaism. And Jesus' teachings and the gospel, well, they represent the desirable new garment and the new wine. So see how convenient it is to plug, especially if you're on the winning side of this debate, to plug your side in to the elements of the story that are favorable. And again, all of this was done without the benefit of really some meaningful sit-down, one-to-one dialogue with the Jewish community. Essentially, 1900 years ago, the church and the synagogue parted ways. There was a schism, even before the schism of the 1000s between the between the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Great Schism. There was an earlier schism that took place closer to the first century, where the Jewish synagogue parted ways with the Gentile Christian Church, and the Gentile Christian Church parted ways with their synagogue counterparts, and the two formed two different competing religious streams of narrative and religious experience, including all of their traditions and hand-me-downs and all these other dialogues and prayers and things like that. And so, as I say in my commentary, the caricature of Judaism presented by all four samples seems to me to be too pejorative for a Messianic Jew to accept, even if it's unintentional. Even if, and I'm quite sure, if I had all four of these groups represented sitting in front of me right now, I had Piper, MacArthur, GodQuestions.org, and Guzik. If I had all four of them sitting in front of me face to face right now, and I explained to them as a Messianic Jew, do you know that your explanation of this parable in Yeshua, of the wine and the patch and the wedding and why Yeshua did what he did, do you know that your explanation offends me as a Messianic Jew? I'm quite certain they would say, well, we don't intend to offend you. We consider you our brother, especially if you are a Messianic Jew. If you believe in Jesus the way that we do, if you consider that Jesus is your Lord the same way that we do, then you're our brother. And we're certainly very sorry for the offense. We don't mean that. But they would probably be quick to add that it was necessary for Jesus to come and replace those old religious systems because they were relying on their own works and their own legalism to get them in to an audience with God, and it was necessary that Jesus came to show them the error of their ways. So even though it's offensive, sometimes truth hurts, and sometimes truth can be offensive. And so they probably add that particular element to their answer to me if I were to be able to dialogue with them.